The handcuffs clicked shut around wrists that had known worse things than metal. Caleb Bryant stood perfectly still on the corner of 5th and Madison, surrounded by 3 patrol cars with their lights painting the afternoon crowd in strokes of red and blue. Officer Garrett Doyle kept one hand on his weapon, the other shoving Caleb's shoulder harder than necessary. "Federal agent?" Garrett's laugh cut through the gathering crowd. "This guy? Look at him." Caleb did look like a lot of things. Homeless, certainly. His coat held together by hope and duct tape, his shoes worn thin enough to feel every crack in the sidewalk. Black, obviously, which seemed to matter more than it should to the 3 white officers circling him like he was prey. Crazy, maybe, to anyone watching a man in his condition claim he once worked undercover for the government. What he didn't look like was someone worth believing. "I'm telling you," Caleb said quietly, his voice carrying a strange steadiness that didn't match his appearance. "I was a federal agent. Deep cover, 2012. They erased me from the system when the operation went south." "Sure they did." Garrett yanked him toward the patrol car. "And I'm the president." A woman in a business suit pulled her child closer. A teenager filmed on his phone, already composing the caption. "Homeless dude thinks he's James Bond LMAO." An elderly man shook his head and kept walking. Just another crazy person. Just another day in the city. But Caleb's eyes tracked something the crowd couldn't see. The building across the street, 3rd floor, 2nd window from the right. He'd stood in that exact spot 8 years ago, watching a target who would later disappear along with Caleb's entire identity. "You got ID?" Garrett demanded. "They took it. Took everything when they buried the case." "Convenient." Garrett shoved him into the back seat. "Real convenient." Through the window, Caleb watched the city he'd once protected move past, like he was already a ghost. The station house, the courthouse, the federal building where his real badge, his actual government-issued credentials, had been destroyed in a fire that wasn't really a fire. Or so they'd claimed. At the precinct, they processed him like every other John Doe. Prints, photos, the whole degrading ritual. Caleb submitted to it all with an unsettling calm, like a man who'd been waiting for this moment. Detective Maya Ross, fresh from law school and assigned to intake, barely looked up from her paperwork. Just another vagrant with delusions of grandeur. She'd seen dozens this month alone. Name? Caleb Bryant. Badge number? Save it, she typed without meeting his eyes. Current address? Wherever I can find it. Uh-huh. And you were a federal agent? Technically. They can erase the records, but they can't erase what happened. Maya's fingers paused on the keyboard. Something in his voice, not the words, but the way he said them, like he was telling the truth and knew no one would believe him anyway. Listen, Mr. Bryant. There's something they didn't take. Caleb leaned forward, and for just a second, Maya saw something in his eyes that made her forget he was homeless, forget he was crazy. Something I kept hidden, something they've been looking for ever since. What's that? Caleb smiled, sad and knowing. Proof I existed. Garrett appeared in the doorway. We're booking him. Obstruction, false impersonation, the usual homeless guy causing problems package. Maya looked at Caleb one more time. He sat perfectly straight despite the handcuffs, despite the smell of the streets on his clothes, despite being treated like garbage by everyone who'd seen him today. His posture was wrong for a homeless man, too disciplined, too trained. What case? She asked suddenly. 2012. What were you working on? Garrett rolled his eyes. Come on, Ross, don't encourage corruption. Caleb's voice dropped. Police corruption? And the cop at the center of it? He looked directly at Garrett. He's still out there, still wearing a badge, still destroying lives. The room went silent. Get him to holding, Garrett snapped, his face flushed. As they led Caleb away, he called back to Maya. Some badges don't live in files, Detective. Some live in blood. Maya stared at her empty intake form. Under priors, the system showed nothing. Under employment history, blank. Under known associates, not a single name. It was like Caleb Bryant had never existed at all. The holding cell smelled like every mistake the city refused to acknowledge. Caleb sat on the metal bench, his wooden cane resting across his knees, the only possession they'd let him keep. His fingers traced its worn surface with the familiarity of prayer. Around him, the usual chorus, a drunk singing off-key, a kid crying about his first arrest, someone demanding their lawyer for the 15th time. He'd been in worse places, done worse things in the name of justice. Upstairs, Maya Ross couldn't stop thinking about the empty database. She pulled up Caleb's intake file again, then cross-referenced it with the federal employment system. Nothing. National Crime Database? No record. Even the homeless shelter network that tracked repeat visitors showed 0 hits for Caleb Bryant. Still playing detective with the crazy guy? Her supervisor, Lieutenant Chen, dropped a stack of files on her desk. His record is completely blank. Not even a parking ticket. Don't you think that's strange? I think homeless people don't generate much paperwork. Chen shrugged. Probably gave you a fake name. But Maya had run the prints. They'd come back as nothing. Not no match, actually nothing, like the system refused to acknowledge they existed. She opened Google, typed Federal Deep Cover Operations 2012, hundreds of conspiracy sites, Reddit threads, nothing credible. She refined the search. Federal agent erased identity protection program. One result made her pause. A news article from 2012, archived and barely indexed. Corruption Task Force disbanded after fatal incident. The details were vague. An investigation into police misconduct, suddenly terminated, all files sealed. No names listed. Just a reference number, OPR 2012-4782. Maya pulled out the intake form, where Caleb had started to say his badge number before she'd cut him off. She stared at what he'd written. OPR. Her hands went cold. Jesus, she whispered. She headed to the holding cells, her intern badge barely getting her past security. Caleb was exactly where she'd left him, looking like he'd been waiting. You said they erased you. Maya stood outside his cell. When? How? October 2012, after my partner was killed. Caleb's voice carried no emotion, like he'd told this story to himself so many times it had lost its shape. We were close to exposing a network of cops running protection for the cartels. Real badges, real authority, completely rotten underneath. Your partner, Marcus Washington. They made it look like a gang shooting, random violence, case closed. His fingers tightened on the cane. But I knew, I had proof. Audio recordings, transaction records, names. Maya's heart pounded. What happened to the evidence? I was supposed to turn it in. Instead, I ran. Caleb looked up, and Maya saw the weight of 8 years in his eyes. They came for me anyway. Burned the safe house. Destroyed every piece of documentation proving I existed. Told my family I'd died in the fire. That's illegal. The Bureau can't just... Can't they? Caleb stood, approached the bars. How many people has the government erased when it was convenient? How many of us disappear because we know too much or became too expensive to protect? Maya wanted to argue, but the empty database mocked her certainty. You mentioned a code, she said. OPR 2012-4782. What does it mean? Officer Protection Racket. That was the operation name. Caleb smiled without humor. Ironic, right? Protecting citizens from the officers meant to protect them. Maya pulled out her phone, Googled the code again, this time adding keywords Caleb had given her. Washington Corruption, 2012. Nothing. She tried Marcus Washington police officer killed 2012. Her screen filled with results. Officer Marcus Washington, decorated veteran, killed in apparent gang violence. Funeral attended by hundreds. Case remained open, but no suspects. He was a cop? Maya's voice cracked. We both were. Different agencies, same goal. No, they kept that part out of my file, too. Probably afraid someone would connect the dots. Caleb leaned against the bars. But you're connecting them now, aren't you, Detective? Maya scrolled through the articles. Everyone mentioned Marcus's partner attending the funeral, refusing interviews, eventually resigning from the force due to emotional trauma. No name given, no photo, like the department had scrubbed his identity even from grief. The database doesn't say you don't exist, Maya said slowly. It says you've been actively removed. Now you're getting it. But why keep you in the system at all? Why not just... She couldn't finish the sentence. Kill me? Caleb's laugh was bitter. I'm insurance. As long as I'm alive, they know where I am, know I'm powerless. The moment I die, everything I hid gets released automatically. He paused. Or at least, that's what I told them. You're bluffing? I'm surviving. He gripped the bars. There's a difference between having nothing and making them believe you have something. The only power the powerless have is the mystery of what we might still possess. Maya stared at him. This man who'd been a ghost, a cop, a target, now just another body the system wanted to forget. What do you need from me? She asked. Caleb met her eyes. Believe that I existed. That's all anyone wants, really. Proof that their life mattered. Before Maya could respond, Garrett appeared at the end of the corridor. Ross, what the hell are you doing down here? She turned, mind racing, but when she looked back at Caleb, he'd returned to his bench, face unreadable. Only his fingers moved, tapping a rhythm on his wooden cane, like he was counting down to something. Maya waited 3 days before she broke protocol. She met Caleb in Memorial Park, where the homeless could sit without harassment as long as they kept to the edges. He was there before her, on a bench beneath an oak tree that had probably witnessed 1,000 forgotten lives. You came, he said, not surprised. I could lose my job for this. Maya sat, keeping distance between them. The morning joggers gave them wide berth. Young professional woman, homeless black man, a tableau the city had learned to ignore. You won't. Caleb's hands rested on his cane, that same worn piece of wood that seemed to be his only constant. Because you're not here as a lawyer anymore. You're here as someone who needs to know the truth. I researched Marcus Washington. Everything checks out. Decorated officer, killed in 2012, case unsolved, but I can't find any record of a partner. That's because I was federal, he was local. We were paired for the investigation specifically because no one would think to look for connections. Caleb smiled sadly. Compartmentalization. It's how they keep secrets. Make sure no one sees the whole picture. Maya watched his fingers on the cane, that same nervous energy from the cell. You keep touching that thing like it's alive. It is, in a way. Caleb lifted the cane, examined it like seeing an old friend. You know what's funny about being erased? They take everything. Your apartment, your car, your photos, your clothes. They're very thorough. But sometimes they miss the obvious. He twisted the cane's handle. Maya heard a soft click. The bottom section of the cane slid apart, revealing a hollow chamber. Inside, wrapped in waterproof plastic, a badge, federal credentials, and a small memory card. Maya's breath caught. The badge gleamed even in shadow. Real metal, real authority, edges worn from years of use. The photo showed a younger Caleb, clean-shaven in a suit. Name, Caleb Bryant. Agency, DEA Special Operations. Badge number OPR 2012-4782. Jesus Christ, she whispered. They never thought to check a homeless man's walking stick. Caleb carefully rewrapped the items. Too busy looking in safes and storage units and bank vaults. Forgot that sometimes the best hiding place is complete visibility. The memory card. Audio recordings, 12 of them. Conversations between cops and cartel middlemen. Payment schedules. Protection agreements. His voice dropped. And one recording of Marcus's murder. I was wearing a wire that night. Heard everything. Maya felt sick. Who? You want a name? Or you want to understand what names mean in a system that protects itself? Caleb's eyes held hers. The man who killed Marcus is still carrying a badge, still trusted, still destroying lives while everyone treats him like a hero. Give me the recording. I'll take it to who? The police? The same department that killed Marcus? The FBI? The agency that erased me? Caleb laughed, sharp and painful. You're thinking like someone who still believes the system works when you follow the rules. Then what's the point? Why keep the evidence if you won't use it? I used it. 8 years ago, I gave copies to people I thought I could trust. Journalists, lawyers, even a federal judge. Caleb's fingers traced the cane. 2 of them died in accidents. The others suddenly stopped returning calls. The judge retired early, moved to Montana, won't even say my name. That's, Maya struggled for words. That's conspiracy theory territory. Is it? Caleb stood slowly, age and pain making the movement difficult. Or is that what we call truth when it's too ugly to accept? He pressed the memory card into her hand. Maya stared at it, smaller than her thumbnail, containing evidence of murder, corruption, the destruction of a man's entire existence. One recording is different from the others, Caleb said quietly. December 2012, 2 months after Marcus died. It's the voice of a white officer, badge number 7743, admitting to planting evidence, falsifying reports, covering up Marcus's murder, all of it. But at the end, he paused. At the end, he says, we did what we had to do, for the reputation of the force. Who was he talking to? His captain, who's now deputy chief. Caleb watched her face process this. Badge 7743 belongs to Officer Garrett Doyle, the man who arrested me. The man being promoted next month for his exemplary service to the community. The park spun around Maya. Garrett, with his easy smile and casual racism. Garrett, who'd laughed at Caleb's claims. Garrett, who'd pushed a little too hard, seemed a little too eager to discredit this particular homeless man. He recognized you, Maya breathed. He knows exactly who I am, has known since the moment I walked into that precinct. Caleb gathered his cane. That's why he wanted me processed fast. No questions, no investigation. Get me into the system, get me out, make me disappear again. I'll take this to the DA, today, right now. You could. Caleb started walking. But ask yourself, why does a man keep evidence for 8 years without using it? What's he waiting for? What are you waiting for? Caleb turned back, and for the first time, Maya saw something other than sadness in his eyes. Strategy. Justice isn't just about evidence, detective. It's about timing, about making sure the truth lands in front of people who can't look away. He smiled. Next week, your department is hosting a public ceremony. Media, politicians, community leaders, all there to watch Garrett Doyle receive the Medal of Valor. You can't be serious. There are some truths that need an audience. Caleb touched his cane like it was a weapon. Some badges that need to be ripped off publicly so everyone sees what was hiding underneath. He walked away, leaving Maya holding evidence that could destroy a decorated officer, expose departmental corruption, and prove that a dead man had been alive all along. She looked at the memory card. Such a small thing to hold so much weight. Behind her, a homeless woman pushed a cart full of cans and cardboard. A businessman hurried past without seeing either of them. The city moved on, like it always did, around the invisible people it had decided didn't matter. But Maya had felt the metal of that badge, had seen proof that couldn't be argued away. Some evidence didn't need a courtroom. It just needed someone willing to look. The USB drive was gone. Maya tore through her apartment for the third time. Couch cushions on the floor, books scattered, her mattress halfway off the frame. Nothing. The memory card Caleb had given her, the evidence that could bring down Garrett Doyle and expose years of corruption, had vanished. She'd copied it. Of course she had. Burned the audio files to her laptop within an hour of leaving the park. But when she'd opened the folder this morning, she'd found only corrupted data. Files that wouldn't play, that wouldn't even open. Like someone had reached through her screen and erased them. Her hands shook as she called Caleb's number, the burner phone he'd given her. Disconnected. She tried the shelter where he sometimes stayed. No one matching his description had been there in weeks. Memorial Park, empty except for the usual morning crowd. The bench where they'd met, occupied by someone else's forgotten life. Caleb Bryant had disappeared again. Maya stood in her destroyed apartment, surrounded by the wreckage of her certainty, and felt the full weight of what it meant to fight a system that had infinite patience and perfect memory. Her phone rang. Unknown number. You made copies. Not a question. Captain Rhodes's voice, measured and cold. That was foolish, Ms. Ross. How did you... We've been monitoring Caleb Bryant for 8 years. Did you really think we wouldn't notice when he made contact? A pause. You're young. You made a mistake. We can overlook it if you're smart about what happens next. Maya's voice came out steadier than she felt. I won't help you cover this up. Cover up what? A homeless man's delusions? Corrupted audio files that prove nothing? Rhodes sighed. You don't understand how this works. Caleb Bryant is mentally ill. He's been institutionalized twice. His claims about being a federal agent are documented fantasies. We have psychiatric evaluations going back 6 years. He had a real badge, real credentials. Did he? Where are they now? The smile in Rhodes's voice made Maya sick. All you have is a story about evidence you can't produce, a crazy man you can't find, and a promising legal career that could end before it starts. The line went dead. Maya sat on her ruined couch, the implications settling like ash. They'd played her perfectly. Let her meet Caleb. Let her see the evidence. Let her think she could make a difference. Then taken it all away, leaving her with nothing but the memory of what she'd almost had. Worse, they'd made her part of the cover-up. Every time she'd tell this story now, she'd sound exactly like Caleb. Unhinged, desperate, impossible to believe. She grabbed her keys, headed for the door. Maybe the park again, maybe the shelters, maybe… Her landlord was in the hallway, changing her lock. "What are you doing?" "Eviction notice came this morning." He didn't meet her eyes. "Says here you violated your lease. Illegal subletting or something." "That's bullshit. I never… Lady, I just do what the papers say." He finished installing the new deadbolt. "You got an hour to get your essentials. Rest goes to storage." Maya stood in the hallway of the building where she'd lived for 3 years, locked out of her own home, feeling the system's hand tighten around her throat. This was the power Caleb had lived under for 8 years. The casual cruelty of bureaucracy weaponized. The ease with which they could unmake a life. Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. "They killed my name. Now they'll kill yours. Unless you let this go." Maya stared at the words, then at her locked door, then at the choice laid bare before her. She could fight. Lose everything. Job, home, reputation, maybe more. Become another crazy person shouting truth that no one would hear. Another Caleb Bryant, erased and powerless. Or she could let it go. Keep her life. Pretend she'd never seen a badge inside a cane, never heard about a murdered cop named Marcus Washington, never watched a homeless man tap out a rhythm like he was counting down to something. She typed back, "Where are you?" No response. She tried again. "Caleb, where are you? They can't do this. We can still…" The number was disconnected. Maya slid down the hallway wall, surrounded by the efficiency of her own destruction. They'd done this in less than 12 hours, found her weak points, struck with precision, left her with nothing but choices that felt like surrender. She thought about Caleb, somewhere in the city, watching this happen. Knowing it would happen, maybe even planning for it. Her phone buzzed again. Different number. "I told you, some badges don't live in files. They live in blood. Check your mailbox, not your apartment, the one at your parents' house, the place you haven't been in 6 months. I'm sorry they hurt you, but pain is just proof you're still in the fight. If you don't find me tomorrow, remember, I was never trying to win, just trying to make sure the truth didn't die with me." Maya stared at the message, her heart hammering. Her parents' house, the mailbox, something he'd sent before all this happened, before she'd even met him in the park. Like he'd known how this would play out. Like he'd been 3 moves ahead the whole time. She stood, brushed off her pants, looked at her locked door one last time. Then she headed for her car. Because if Caleb Bryant had taught her anything in their brief, doomed alliance, it was this. The powerless don't fight fair. They fight smart. And sometimes, losing everything is just the beginning of having nothing left to lose. Captain Daniel Rhodes opened his mailbox at 6:47 a.m., the same time he had for 32 years. Inside, between the electric bill and a grocery store flyer, a manila envelope with no return address. Just his name, written in handwriting he hadn't seen in 8 years, but would recognize anywhere. Marcus Washington's handwriting. Rhodes's hands trembled as he tore it open. Inside, a letter, a photograph, and a flash drive. The photo showed 3 men in casual clothes, arms around each other, beers raised to whoever was taking the picture. Rhodes recognized himself immediately. Younger, laughing, still believing the badge meant what it was supposed to mean. Marcus Washington on his left, grinning that infectious smile that could defuse any situation. And on his right, Caleb Bryant, alive, real, exactly as Rhodes remembered him. The letter was brief. Danny, by the time you read this, you'll have already heard the story. Homeless man claiming to be a federal agent. Crazy, right? Convenient. You and I both know what happened in 2012. You were there when they decided Marcus was too close to exposing the network. You were there when they planned his random death. And you were there when they came to you with a choice: help erase me or join Marcus in the ground. I don't blame you for choosing survival. I might have done the same. But survival isn't the same as justice, Danny. And you've carried that weight for 8 years. I can see it in every public appearance, every speech about integrity, every award you accept while knowing what you really are. The flash drive contains something you need to hear, not the evidence I've been holding. That's for someone else. This is different. This is Marcus's voice, the night before they killed him, telling me exactly who he trusted if something happened to him. He trusted you, Danny. Said you were the only one clean enough to make things right if the network came for him. Was he wrong? The ceremony is in 4 days. Officer Garrett Doyle receives his medal. The man who pulled the trigger on Marcus gets honored while you stand on stage and applaud. I'm giving you a choice Marcus never had. Be the person he believed you were, or be the person they made you. The ledger series on my badge was Ledju 8847. Check your records. Real badges leave traces, even when the system tries to erase them. Caleb. Rhodes sat in his car, the letter shaking in his hands, Marcus's face smiling up at him from the photograph. He remembered that day. A barbecue at Marcus's house, unofficial celebration of the task force's first major breakthrough. They'd been so close to bringing down the whole network. Dirty cops, cartel connections, years of corruption documented and ready for prosecution. 3 days later, Marcus was dead. A week after that, Caleb Bryant vanished in a fire that left no body. And Rhodes had stood in the deputy commissioner's office and signed papers confirming that Special Agent Bryant had died in the line of duty, knowing it was a lie, knowing Caleb was alive somewhere and running for his life, knowing that his signature was the final piece in erasing a good man from existence. They'd made it simple. Sign or answer questions about why his own phone records showed calls to Marcus the night he died. Sign or explain why his daughter's college tuition had suddenly been paid in full by an anonymous donor. Sign or watch his 30-year career end with a corruption charge that would stick because they'd made sure of it. He'd signed. Signed and told himself it was survival. Signed and told himself Caleb would understand. Signed and spent 8 years wondering if staying alive was worth the price of who he'd had to become. Rhodes plugged the flash drive into his laptop with hands that barely worked. Marcus's voice filled the car, recorded on what must have been his phone. Casual quality but devastating clarity. Danny, if you're hearing this, it means they got me. Caleb said I should record this, just in case. He's paranoid like that. But maybe that's why he's still alive and I'm... Anyway, listen. I know you. Known you since the academy. You're a good cop, Danny. One of the last real ones. So I'm trusting you with something. Caleb has everything. All the evidence, all the recordings, ledgers, transaction records, the works. But if something happens to me, if they figure out a way to stop this, don't let them bury it. Don't let them turn this into another unsolved case filed away and forgotten. You're going to get pressure. Threats, probably. Bribes, definitely. They're going to make it real hard to do the right thing. But you've never taken the easy path, Danny. That's why I trust you. My partner, Caleb Bryant, Leg 8847. He's the real deal, man. Federal deep cover. Been running this operation with me for 16 months. If I'm gone and he's running, find him. Protect him. Help him finish what we started. Because if we don't stop this, if we don't root out the corruption, what's the point of the badge? What are we protecting if not the truth? Take care of my family? Tell them I loved them? And Danny? Be the cop we both thought we were when we started. The recording ended. Rhodes sat in silence, Marcus's words echoing in the confined space of his car, accusation and hope tangled together. He pulled out his phone, scrolled through his contacts to a number he'd kept all these years, despite every reason to delete it. DEA Records Division. This is Captain Daniel Rhodes, Metro PD. I need to verify a badge ledger number from 2012. Ledge 8847. The wait was interminable. Captain, that ledger number is flagged. I can't access. Override it. My clearance code is Rhodes 9 Delta 47. More typing. Then, sir, this badge was reported destroyed in an operation fire, 2012, but the ledger series is authentic. Issued to... A pause. Special Agent Caleb Bryant, DEA Special Operations Division. Rhodes closed his eyes. Caleb's badge was real. Everything he'd claimed. Real. Which meant the last 8 years of Rhodes's life had been built on protecting the lie that destroyed a good man. He looked at the photograph again. 3 friends, 3 cops who'd believed in something bigger than survival. 1 dead, 1 erased, 1 compromised and corrupt, but somehow still breathing. Be the cop we both thought we were when we started. Rhodes started his car, made a U-turn, headed not toward the station but toward the federal building downtown. 4 days until Garrett Doyle's ceremony. 4 days to choose between the person Marcus had believed in and the coward Rhodes had become. 4 days to prove that some debts can't be paid in silence. He dialed another number. Maya Ross, this is Captain Rhodes. We need to talk about Caleb Bryant. And no, they're not listening. Not this time. The grand ballroom glittered with the kind of respectability that only comes from willful blindness. Mayor Richardson stood at the podium, praising Officer Garrett Doyle's unwavering commitment to justice. Council members nodded. Community leaders applauded. The media captured every moment, local news stations positioning for the best angle on a hero cop receiving the Medal of Valor. Garrett stood stage left in his dress uniform, medals gleaming, face arranged in humble gratitude. He'd practiced that expression, had used it at a dozen ceremonies just like this one, collecting honors for work that looked heroic only if you didn't examine it too closely. In the back of the ballroom, Maya Ross stood beside Captain Rhodes, both in civilian clothes, both watching the performance with new eyes. He knows we're here, Rhodes murmured. How can you tell? Watch his left hand. See how it keeps going to his hip? That's where you rest your hand when you're thinking about your weapon. Rhodes's jaw tightened. He's scared. Maya scanned the crowd. Press, politicians, decorated officers, influential citizens, all the people who could witness truth or participate in burying it, depending on which version served them better. Where's Caleb? She asked. He'll come. He's been planning this for 8 years. He won't miss it. But the ceremony continued, and the homeless man who'd started this remained invisible. Speech after speech celebrated Garrett's service record, the arrests, the citations, the career built on a foundation of covered-up murder and systematic corruption. Maya felt her phone vibrate. Text from unknown number, 3rd row, aisle seat, woman in red. She's recording everything. Make sure she doesn't stop. Maya spotted her. Mid-40s, professional camera, press credentials from a news outlet Maya didn't recognize. Independent journalist, maybe. Someone outside the usual channels. Another text. Rhodes, your phone. Check the file I sent this morning. Rhodes pulled out his phone, opened his email. A video file sent at 3 a.m., subject line, "For when they try to stop you." He pressed play, volume low. Caleb's face filled the screen. Clean-shaven, wearing what looked like a borrowed suit, speaking directly to camera. "If you're watching this during the ceremony, it means I didn't make it. Either they found me first, or I lost my nerve, or any of the 1,000 ways a plan can fail when you're fighting people with infinite resources. But you're there, Danny. You and Maya. And that means the truth has a chance." On the flash drive I gave Maya. Yes, I made sure she'd find it. There's a full recording of Garrett's confession. Not just about Marcus, about everything. The network, the payments, the other murders, all of it. I was going to play it myself. Public confrontation, dramatic reveal, all very cinematic. But maybe that's not how justice works. Maybe justice is quieter. A good cop and a brave lawyer choosing to do the right thing when it costs them everything. The woman in red, third row. Her name is Sandra Chen, investigative journalist. She's been trying to break this story for 6 years. Give her everything. She'll know what to do with it. And if they come for you after, when they come for you, remember, truth doesn't die when they silence the messenger. It just waits for the next voice. Be that voice, Danny. You owe Marcus that much. The video ended. Rhodes and Maya stared at each other. Caleb had planned for his own absence, had known they might stop him before he reached the ceremony, had built redundancy into his revenge. "We could wait," Maya whispered. "See if he shows up. Or we could honor what he's trying to do." Rhodes looked at the flash drive Maya held. "Finish it for him." On stage, the mayor was calling Garrett forward for the medal presentation. Cameras flashed. The audience rose in standing ovation. Garrett walked to the podium that practiced humility on his face, and Maya saw what Rhodes had seen, the fear underneath. The knowledge that somewhere, someone might finally be brave enough to speak truth. Rhodes started moving toward Sandra Chen. Maya grabbed his arm. "Wait, look." The ballroom's side door opened. Caleb Bryant walked in. Not the homeless man from the precinct, not the broken figure from the park. This was someone else. Or perhaps who he'd been all along beneath the disguise of powerlessness. He wore a simple black suit, probably borrowed, definitely cheap. His hair was cut, his face clean. But it was his bearing that transformed him. Shoulders back, head high, walking with the quiet authority of someone who'd earned the right to be here. He moved through the crowd like water, unstoppable and patient. People glanced at him, confused, clearly didn't belong among the distinguished guests, but moving with too much purpose to be security's concern. Garrett saw him from the stage. The practiced humility cracked. Just for a second, but Maya saw it. Recognition, terror, rage all flickering across his face before the mask snapped back in place. Caleb stopped at the third row, leaned down to Sandra Chen. Spoke quietly. She nodded, adjusted her camera, kept recording. Then Caleb turned toward the stage, made eye contact with Garrett, and smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who'd waited 8 years for this moment, who'd survived erasure and poverty and systematic destruction, who'd planned every move and was now 3 steps ahead of everyone in the room. The mayor finished his speech, held up the Medal of Valor, Officer Garrett Doyle, for your exceptional service and unwavering dedication to justice. Excuse me. Caleb's voice cut through the applause. Not loud, but carrying. I have something to say about justice. Every head turned. Garrett's hand went to his hip, the weapon that wasn't there in dress uniform. Rhodes stepped forward, badge visible. Maya raised the flash drive where everyone could see, and Sandra Chen kept her camera rolling as the ceremony of shadows finally stepped into light. Silence has a weight when 500 people create it at once. Caleb stood in the aisle, every eye on him, the moment crystallizing into something that couldn't be undone. Mayor Richardson recovered first. Sir, this is a private ceremony. I'll have to ask you to— My name is Caleb Bryant. His voice carried to every corner of the ballroom. Special Agent, DEA, badge number Leg 8847. 8 years ago, the department you're celebrating tried to erase me from existence. Garrett laughed. Sharp, dismissive. Mr. Mayor, this is the homeless man who was arrested last week for impersonating a federal agent. Yes. Caleb reached into his jacket. Security tensed, hands moving toward weapons. Easy. Just retrieving something they couldn't take from me. He pulled out the badge. Real metal caught the chandelier light. Federal seal, credentials, photo, name. All of it authentic. All of it impossible to explain away. That's fake, Garrett said quickly. Obviously fake. The man is mentally ill. He's been— Check the ledger series. Rhodes stepped forward, his own badge visible. Leg 8847. I verified it this morning with DEA records. It's real, Garrett. He's real. The room erupted in whispers. Caleb walked toward the stage, each step deliberate. October 2012. Officer Marcus Washington and I were investigating police corruption, cops providing protection for cartel operations. We were close to breaking the whole network. He looked directly at Garrett. Then Marcus was murdered, made to look like a gang shooting. This is insane. You killed him. Caleb's voice didn't rise, didn't need to. You and 3 other officers beat him, shot him, dumped him in an alley and called it random violence. Garrett's face flushed. I was exonerated. The investigation cleared me of any— Investigation? Caleb smiled without humor. The same investigation that happened to destroy all the evidence Marcus and I had collected. The same one that erased my identity, burned my credentials, told my family I was dead. You have no proof, don't I? Caleb nodded to Maya. She stepped forward, held up the flash drive. Audio recording, December 2012. Officer Garrett Doyle speaking to Captain, then Lieutenant Hayes, discussing the cover-up of Marcus Washington's murder. Sandra Chen moved closer, camera capturing everything. This is theater! Garrett's voice cracked. You people are trying to destroy a decorated officer with conspiracy theories and fabricated— Play it, Caleb said quietly. Maya handed the drive to a confused AV technician who looked to the mayor for guidance. Richardson nodded slowly, seeming to understand that stopping this now would look worse than letting it play out. The ballroom speakers crackled to life. Garrett's voice, younger but unmistakable. We did what we had to do. Washington was going to expose everyone. You, me, half the precinct. What were we supposed to do? Let him destroy careers? Another voice. Lieutenant Hayes. The evidence? Garrett. Burned. All of it. The federal agent, too. Bryant. House fire took care of him. Hayes. You're sure he's dead? Garrett. Even if he's not, who's going to believe a man with no identity? No records, no proof he ever existed? We made him into a ghost. A pause. Then Garrett's laugh. cold and satisfied. We did what we had to do, for the reputation of the force. The recording stopped. The silence returned, heavier now. Garrett stood frozen, face draining of color. Around the room, the calculation was happening. Police officials, politicians, journalists all doing the math on what this meant, who it implicated, how far the corruption spread. That's someone edited. Garrett grasped for anything. You can't trust digital recordings. Everyone knows they can be manipulated. They can be verified. Rhodes's voice cut through the excuses. Audio forensics, voice pattern analysis, metadata examination. You want to go down that road, Garrett? The mayor stepped back from the podium. Council members shifted in their seats. The woman from Internal Affairs was already on her phone. Caleb climbed onto the stage, stood face to face with the man who'd destroyed his life. You took everything from me, he said quietly, just between them but picked up by the live microphones. My career, my identity, my family's peace. You made me into nothing so you could keep being something. Garrett's hand trembled. You don't understand the pressure, the choices we had to make. I understand perfectly. Caleb's voice carried profound sadness. You chose survival over justice, chose your reputation over Marcus's life, chose silence over truth. I was following orders. No, Rhodes joined them on stage. You were giving them. Hayes took orders from you, not the other way around. We both know it. Security was moving now, not toward Caleb, but toward Garrett. The woman from IA pushed through the crowd, badge out, face grim. Officer Doyle, she said, I need you to come with me. This is a setup. Garrett looked to the mayor, to the council members, to anyone who might save him. Political persecution, that's what this is. But they were already turning away. The cameras had what they needed. The journalists were filing stories in real time. The officials were calculating how to distance themselves from a decorated officer who'd suddenly become a liability. Caleb stepped back, let the system he'd fought against finally do its job. As they led Garrett away, not yet in cuffs, but the walk of shame already starting, the officer looked back at Caleb. I would have let you stay dead, he said. Could have kept your secret. Why couldn't you just disappear? Caleb touched his wooden cane, the hollow chamber that had hidden truth for 8 years. Because some voices, he said, can't be silenced. They just wait for the right moment to speak. Garrett was escorted out. The ceremony dissolved into chaos. Journalists swarming, officials fleeing, the Medal of Valor sitting forgotten on the podium. Rhodes stood beside Caleb. What happens now? Now. Caleb looked at the empty stage, the scattered crowd, the truth finally loose in the world. Now they investigate, find the others, expose the network, and maybe, Marcus gets justice. And you? Caleb smiled, tired but genuine. I get to exist again. That's enough. Sandra Chen approached, camera still rolling. Mr. Bryant, can I ask you a few questions? He nodded, started to speak, then stopped, looked directly into the camera and said, There's a badge on every street corner. Some carry it on their chest. Some carry it in their blood. The difference is, when you strip away the medal, the authority, the system protecting them, which one is still standing for what's right? The question hung in the air as the ceremony's ruins settled around them. Maya stood beside Rhodes, watching Caleb finally step into the light he'd been denied for 8 years. He knew, she whispered, knew exactly how this would play. He's been nothing for so long, Rhodes said. He had time to plan everything. In the emptying ballroom, as officials scrambled and journalists hunted their stories, and the system began its painful process of cleaning house. One homeless man in a borrowed suit had proven something fundamental. You can erase a name, you can destroy records, you can make someone invisible, but you can't kill truth. It just waits, patient and implacable, for someone brave enough to give it voice. 3 months later, Caleb Bryant walked past the precinct where he'd once been arrested. Not as a suspect, not as a ghost, just as a man. The department had offered him everything: reinstatement, back pay, public apology, compensation for 8 years of erased existence. He'd declined it all except one thing: the restoration of his identity. Social Security number reactivated, employment records unsealed, a letter from the DEA commissioner confirming his service, his sacrifice, his unimpeachable integrity. He was real again. That was enough. The investigation had moved with surprising speed once the dam broke. Garrett Doyle was in federal custody, cooperation deal rejected. Lieutenant Hayes, now former Lieutenant Hayes, had been charged with conspiracy, obstruction, accessory to murder. 6 other officers faced prosecution. The network was unraveling, thread by thread, name by name. Marcus Washington's family finally had answers. Not comfort. Answers can't bring back the dead. But truth. The kind of truth that lets you properly grieve instead of drowning in questions. Caleb had attended the memorial service. Stood in the back, didn't speak, just let Marcus's sister hold his hand while she cried. "He believed in you," she'd whispered. "All the way to the end." "I know," Caleb had said. "That's why I couldn't let them bury him twice." Now he walked through the city that had erased him, past the corners where he'd slept, past the shelters that had housed him, past the people who still didn't see him, because seeing the homeless required a kind of vision most people didn't have. He wasn't angry about it anymore. Being invisible had been his weapon, his shield, his way of surviving long enough to strike back. Maya Ross waited for him at the community center on 7th Street. She'd left the DA's office. Not fired, but the writing had been clear on the wall. Instead, she'd opened a practice focused on civil rights cases. Her first client, a homeless veteran claiming police brutality. "You're late," she said when Caleb arrived. "Was visiting someone." He didn't elaborate. They walked inside, where 24 teenagers sat in a circle. Kids from the neighborhood, mostly black and brown, all of them familiar with how the system could swallow you whole if you weren't careful. This was Caleb's new work. Not federal agent, not homeless ghost, just a man who'd seen both sides of justice and could teach young people how to navigate the gap between them. "All right," he said, settling into a chair, his wooden cane resting across his knees. "Who can tell me what justice means?" Hands shot up. Answers came. Fairness, equality, punishment for crime, protecting the innocent. "Good," Caleb nodded. "Now who can tell me what justice costs?" Silence. "It costs everything," he said quietly. "Your comfort, your safety, sometimes your life. It costs being willing to lose it all for something bigger than survival." One girl, maybe 15, raised her hand. "But you won, right? You proved them wrong. Got your life back." "Did I win?" Caleb considered this. "I lost 8 years, lost my family's peace, lost my friend Marcus. But yes, truth came out. Bad cops are facing consequences. The system is being forced to look at itself. So, partial win?" "No." Caleb smiled. "Different kind of win. Not about getting back what I lost. About making sure the truth didn't die with me. About proving that even powerless people have power if they're patient enough to use it right." A boy in the back, skeptical. You're saying we got power? Look at us. Look where we live. I was homeless, Caleb said. No ID, no money, no proof I existed. And I brought down a decorated cop and exposed a corruption network. You think you have less power than I did? The room sat with that. Maya stepped forward. Power isn't always loud, isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just not giving up when they want you to, being the one who remembers when everyone else wants to forget. After the session, as the kids filtered out, one boy lingered. 16, eyes that had seen too much too young. Mr. Bryant, that badge you had, the one you kept hidden, what happened to it? Caleb pulled the badge from his pocket. Still real, still gleaming. But he didn't keep it for himself anymore. He pressed it into the boy's hand. Hold it. Feel the weight. The kid's eyes widened. This is real federal. Badge doesn't make you official, Caleb said. Being official makes you carry the badge. You understand the difference? The boy turned it over, reading the inscription, the number, feeling the reality of it. Someday, Caleb said, someone's going to try to tell you that you don't matter, that your voice doesn't count, that people like us, people from places like this, we're supposed to stay quiet and accept whatever they decide for us. What do I do then? You remember this moment. Remember that a badge is just metal until someone carries it with honor. And honor doesn't come from the system giving it to you. It comes from you deciding what kind of person you're going to be when no one's watching. The boy handed back the badge carefully. Caleb walked out into the evening, Maya beside him. Rhodes called, she said. They want to give you a civilian medal. Public ceremony, mayor's office, whole production. I'm good. I told him you'd say that. She smiled. He said Marcus would be proud. Caleb stopped, looked back at the community center where kids were learning that justice wasn't a gift from the powerful. It was something you fought for, brick by brick, truth by truth, voice by voice. Marcus would say, we're not done, that this is just beginning. Is he wrong? No. Caleb gripped his cane, the hollow chamber now empty, but still meaningful. Revolution isn't one moment. It's every moment someone chooses truth over comfort. They walked into the city as evening settled. A former ghost and a former lawyer, both now just people trying to make sure the next person didn't have to be erased to be heard. Behind them, the precinct lights glowed. Official, authoritative, powerful. But somewhere in a community center on 7th Street, a 16-year-old boy was telling his friends about holding a real federal badge, about a homeless man who'd brought down the system, about how power wasn't what they gave you. It was what you claimed when you refused to be silenced. And in the city's memory, slowly being rewritten, a new story took root. Justice doesn't always wear a uniform. Sometimes it wears out shoes and a borrowed suit. Sometimes it carries truth in a hollow cane for 8 years. Sometimes it's just a voice that refused to be erased. And that voice, patient, persistent, unbreakable, was still speaking.